there, my name's Jill Tiny. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learnt an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Hi there, and welcome to Being Human, Hidden Depths by Collaboration Global. And my name is Jill Tiny. I'm the founder of the community. And this podcast is all about one of our very special guests. I'm delighted to welcome Nicholas Haines, I understand known to his friends as Nick. So that's what we're going to call him today. Hi, Nick. Thank you for coming today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I've been so looking forward to this.
Do you know what? There's times in your life when you meet people along the way, and you just kind of get them. And what I loved about our last conversation is that it was shorthanded so many times, because it's like, have you heard? Yes, no, about that. Have you heard about that? Yep, I've read this book. Oh, I've read that one. And it was just so lovely to kind of meet you and not have to explain myself and not have to help you on a journey to get to where I was, because you're already probably several steps ahead of me and I was kind of catching up with you. So the fact that we spoke and we kept looking at our watches going, we really should stop talking now. It seemed perfect to have you here, so we can just carry the conversation on. We're not worried about our listeners. That's fine. They'll join up. They'll catch up with us in a skip of a heartbeat. But that was one of the reasons as a special guest, because as you know, I've explained before, we normally have our members here who are amazing, incredible people. They don't think they're that incredible. They don't think they're that extraordinary. In reality, they are wonderful, wonderful, extraordinary people. And by having these conversations, we bring that out and people can see for themselves how amazing they are. Yeah. And I believe you're one of those people. So it's like, that's why I've brought you into this little forum to carry on the conversation. Now, many months ago, I was lucky enough to complete a questionnaire by the Five Institute, which is the organisation that you founded. How long ago was that? Did you set that up?
It became the Five Institute in 2012. Before that, it had a different name.
Oh, 10-year anniversary. That's lovely.
Yeah, correct.
And I was fascinated by it, not only for the results it gave, but also for where it's come from and how it came into being. So before we talk a little bit more about maybe the results I've got and the results that you've seen in other people, could you just tell us why and how and where did it start from for you? And what was so different about this thing that made you go, I need to make this my life's work?
Well, it's not my life's work, although I've done it all my life. And I think there's a really interesting thing when people talk about your purpose in life and stuff like that. And my central kind of purpose in life is I basically want everybody in the world to have someone that's there for them. And I did that in the playground, and I did that in my clinics, and I did that in my practice. And we have a very clear thing at the Five Institute. When you look at purpose, you can have lots of expressions of it. So you have core purpose, and then you have expressions of it. So my core purpose is I want everybody in the world to have someone that's there for them. And an expression of that is the vitality test. There's a way for people to do that. The trigger for both that central driving purpose and something that has influenced me is when I was 5, my mother was really, really ill, and we were fostered around different families over the space of a year. So about every month I moved to a different family. And what happened there was I got to be quite hyper vigilant. I was constantly wanting to see, how do we fit in? How do we do this? What's going on in this family as a kind of slightly kind of traumatized 5-year-old? And you have to kind of fit in quite quickly if you're going to be okay. And by the time I became a teenager, I was quite kind of very, very, very anxious and very stressed and very worried about everything. And I was hyper vigilant and I was watching everything, observing everything, and really struggled with anxiety and sense of self-confidence and stuff. And then I went to America when I was kind of 20 to go and work at as it turned out to be an acupuncture college. And they wanted to do some research, and I wanted to go and live in Los Angeles. So I rock up to this college, and as part of the research, I had to kind of understand some of Chinese philosophy, some Chinese medicine, to make sense of what they were trying to research and stuff like that. And I remember sitting in that first class when they started explaining about the 5 elements, the 5 energies. And they were talking about it in terms of health. But for me, it was like I suddenly saw the Matrix, like in the film The Matrix, and you can literally, and I saw how the energies interacted with kind of politics and economics and history. And it was like I suddenly had a rewiring in my brain, and I kind of suddenly saw a matrix view of, oh, this is how the world works, and this is how we interact, and this is what kind of goes on. And my anxiety just kind of disappeared, and I wasn't anxious anymore, because my anxiety was based around not knowing. So I have a kind of like I had a framework to kind of view everything. And I wanted to kind of study more about it. And whoever I asked about the energies and geopolitics and economics and social stuff, everyone was going, well, no, it's about health, isn't it? And so I went in 86, I went and worked in a big hospital in China. And I was asking questions there, and there wasn't anything really written around it, or people weren't really kind of like talking about it at the level that I had in my brain to understand it. And then I remember reading some stuff that originally the 5 elements were used in economics and politics and education and interrelationships, and then kind of over 2,000 years ago, all that information was basically destroyed over a 15-year period. And we know that those books all existed. We just don't have the books. We've got the library records, and these books existed. So I thought, well, that's really interesting. So it did exist, but it doesn't now. So I've kind of spent the last kind of 40 years kind of weaving that back and saying, oh, okay, well, how does it work with this? And I look at the energies of time and space and relationships and economics. So you can look at it, you can look at anything. And originally, when the 5 energy elements were kind of used to, it was very much in order for the emperors and people in power to have more power and more influence and to do certain things. It was very elitist, but also quite kind of hierarchical. So one of my big drivers has always been, how can we take this body of information, use it at a ground level? And we were talking about that in our kind of conversation, how you can, 5 Institute, we talk about culture bubbles. How do you create this bottom-up culture that is empowered and connected and interconnected? And that's one of the kind of real missions of the kind of 5 Institute, and what I've done for 42 years, whatever, to try. And that's why things like the vitality test is free, because it's a way to understand each other. So the 5 Institute, we talk about internal and external cultures. How do you live with yourself? How do we live together? What's interacting? How do we understand the complexity of the change we've got at the moment? And it was kind of born from that moment of clarity of, okay, I see. And in a way, I've spent all my time trying to externalize an internal perception I have, or an understanding I have of the world. And for me, it comes down to, I want everybody in the world to have someone that's there for them. So I do the kindness stuff. We do the 5 Institute. We do the can we get society to be okay? Can we make sure no one's left out, no one's excluded? Can we make sure we understand each other? No one's right, no one's wrong. It's just states of being. So that's a kind of bigger level picture of what we're really trying to do with the kind of the Vitality Test, the 5 Institute, and the No More Boxes movement, and all the other things that I kind of I'm involved with.
So I think people who've listened to these podcasts before will now go, that's why she's got him on. Because everything you just said, it just is so in tune with what we are trying to achieve without that kind of background behind it. This has been an intuitive journey for me. And you've said everyone in the world should have someone there for them. And I remember as a child in the playground going, you should play with them, and you should go and play with them. And I would want to be friends, and have be connected and have somebody there, because there's nothing worse in the world, in my opinion, and from my observations, is being lonely. You could have a million friends, but still be very, very lonely. And it's having that deep connection. And we're always talking about you cannot collaborate with anybody. Because to collaborate, you need to be connected to them. And if you don't know who you are, how can you collaborate with anybody else? So you have to connect more deeply to yourself. And this is one of the many ways that people could actually understand themselves. And I think a lot of people haven't done that journey yet. There's an awful lot of people in business who are in leadership roles who may have been sent on a course, have been read a book, or listen to a podcast around leadership, or think they kind of get the gist of it, possibly, maybe. But I like what you talk about with the matrix, whereby you can see the connections for the individual and the connections around the world, but also the connections historically. And how, I wonder why, do you think these books were burned because religion, was it seen as a religion? Was it seen as a culture? Was it seen as something that if the riffraff, the commoners, get hold of it, then the people who are leading, supposedly leading, would no longer have the power that they have over them?
No. It was a really kind of an anomaly of a moment in time. So you had the Zhou dynasty, which lasted for nearly 1,000 years, and then you had the Qin dynasty that lasted for 15 years, 15 years.
Wow.
And they were what's known as legalists, and they had everything was done by the rule of law, and they were prepared to make and break laws. So they won and took over China because they were very mechanistic. They did things like there was a general rule that if the other army were in a river, you would wait till they come out of the river, and then you'd have your battle and then all stuff like that. And they said, well, they're in a river, that's just stupid, so let's just attack them in the river. So they were they did something, the Qin dynasty, they united the whole of China with a common written language within 15 years. They built the foundation, the Great Wall of China, within 15 years. They had a unified language, like I say, but they did it through legal action and control. And one of the ways that you can, so there's a thing that they did that was called the Great Fires of Qin. And the Great Fires of Qin, basically they said, we're going to burn every book that doesn't follow the legalist point of view. And we're going to bury every philosopher that, so it was burning books and burying philosophers. And there were a few books that escaped. So things like the I Ching, which is a book on prediction, some books on warfare got through, and because they were considered to be useful. And then some medical books got through. So that's where we get these kind of the use of the 5 elements and yin and yang, etc. They come through medical texts or the I Ching or different things, and they changed them very slightly, but they basically remained intact, and everything else just kind of went because it didn't fit the narrative that they were doing, that you have a society that has laws and you live by the laws and everything gets done, and it did. enormous amounts of things got done. It just wasn't a very kind and loving place. Just put it that way.
Yeah, I just wish someone somewhere should try that. Yeah, see what happens.
Yeah.
It could be such a nice environment, couldn't it? Could you explain then? There are. So this is. I mean, I'm looking at your stuff. 3,000-year-old wisdom. Goes back a long way. We us Christians think that we go back a long way, but this is like, wow. What would you say the 4 key principles are of this this wisdom?
Well, I think you actually have to take a kind of bigger view of it, because the 5 elements were a way to understand movement and flow and change, etc. And that can apply to anything. But before that, they had Yin and Yang, which was around a polarity. So they said, okay, we've got polarity, but that doesn't really explain the level of change and how we get change. So basically, they were agricultural things. They observed nature, and they saw seasons and flow and how things move from one principle to another. So I think you've got the kind of principles of how the energies form and relate to each other. And then you have the kind of principles about, well, how does that apply to me as an individual? And I think it's more interesting in a way looking at the overall principles of how they're exhibiting in the world. And then you can then look and say, okay, well, then it's applying to me in this way. So shall I run through the elements, the energies, and explain
Thank you.
And we can see the movement and flow. So we start with kind of water energy, and that's related to winter. And in winter, you have basic consequences. If you're a farmer, if you didn't particularly plant your crops, or you didn't look after them, or you didn't harvest them, then winter comes along and you have the consequences that you're starving. Whereas if you did look after them, you have the consequences that you have abundance. So water energy is about consequences and safety and survival and resources, etc. So if you have a lot of water energy in your vitality test profile, we talk about having a big question, and the big question you'll always be looking to the answer for: is this safe? Is this secure? Do we have the resources? Because that's what that energy is about. But water energy also has a duality to it, a double-sided, like movement and stillness. And water energy is also the only energy that leaves its mark on the earth. To think about like the Grand Canyons and how the valleys are created by the glaciers. So again, water energy is about the sustainability, survival, but it's also about what mark is being left behind. What will kind of go on. So we're currently in a water tiger year, first of 2 water energy years. Where we're really kind of getting to decide what mark we want to leave on the earth and how we want things to be. So the last time we were in a water tiger year was 1962, and they were making decisions around civil rights, making decisions about economics, making decisions about how they used power, making decisions around. So we're in a similar thing, that the decisions we make now have a massive influence over time and beyond our lifetime they're going to be doing. So, for example, in the previous block of time that was similar to this, Kennedy said, well, let's look at what we would regard as success within the world. And what we're going to do is we're going to say success is based on economic growth. So GDP will be an indicator as to how well the world will be, very well-meaning, because his idea was if we create wealth, then it would trickle down and the poor will become wealthier and etc. So that then became the mantra of economic growth. And in order to do that, you have to have consumerism and capitalism. And then, so now we're exploring, we're saying, well, how's that worked out? How's that rampant consumerism as a style and a way of doing, how's that worked out? We're doing a water energy reflection. How is that been? And let's then decide. So if you have a lot of water energy in your profile, you'll be concerned often about the environment and how things play out, and will I be leaving my mark? So someone like Tony Robbins has lots of water energy, typical shape, jaw, etc. So he's always saying that the most important thing in life is purpose, and having your purpose and leaving your mark on the earth. which is true for him and his energy. But if you've got wood energy, which is the next energy on, and their big question is, am I free? Are we free? They'll say, well, no, the most important thing in life in the world is freedom and expression. And can we be, and wood energy is related to spring. So that's about things being new and fresh and innovative and revolutionary. It's also about fighting injustice. So it's like we're being told what to do. We don't have our freedom. There's an injustice. We need to create a new world. And they're saying this is how it needs to be. So we're seeing that kind of, you've got a lot of that energy. You're feeling that revolutionary effect.
Yeah.
And
There's
2024, a lot of that about. And 2024 is a wood dragon year, same as 1964. And wood energy is revolutionary. Dragons are divine messages. So we see a divine change within our revolutionary approach to how we look at things differently. So 1964, we had the Civil Rights Act, which was a revolutionary approach and a completely new way to see how things would be. So you have that kind of wood energy, and you're seeing that interacting at the moment because we've got change, and I don't like to be controlled. The next energy around is fire energy, and that's related to summer. It's hot, expansive, fire. And the big question is, am I loved? Am I appreciated? Do I bring joy? And so they'll say, well, look, the most important thing in life is not about purpose and freedom. The most important thing in life is about love. It's about our expression of love and our ability to be loved. And people with a lot of fire energy are asking the question, am I loved? Am I appreciated? So if you're speaking with them, they're always thinking, how is this with you? How are we feeling? How are we together? And it's not, when it gets an ego out of control thing, it goes, oh, love me, love me, love me, love me, love me. But most of the time, it's just, how are we together? Is the joy? Do I bring you joy? I'm thinking, I have a lot of fire energy. How is this with Jill? Is she enjoying this conversation? And I'm going, is anyone listening to this? Are they finding this helpful? And you have to reel that in a bit.
Yes.
Fire energy is about how well we can focus that, because fire has a tendency to expand and get overexcited. So can we focus that down? Can we be like a laser beam, or is that our challenge? And we get overexcited. And do we have to perhaps meditate, as I do, to bring myself down? If I ever have a cup of coffee, I need to be really aware for the next month and a half. I might be quite talkative.
I like that. Yeah.
Then the next energy along is earth energy, and that's late summer. And late summer, they're those kind of lazy, hazy days where everything kind of slows down. It's like you see those adverts, the adverts for cider, where people are kind of sitting around tables and having conversations, and they're talking, and they're communicating. And the big question for earth energy, which is, I've got three energies in equal balance. Earth energy is, do we understand and are we understood? So they're saying, well, the most important thing in life is not about purpose and freedom and love. The most important thing in life is about unity and collaboration and working together. And people with fire say, yes, I'm passionate and I love communication. Yes, let's work together. You see these two bottom energies, which are very much how we are in the humanity of love and sharing, compassion and kindness and collaboration is our earthly existence, should we get it. So they're always looking to do things like this. Remember, you can have two energies going at the same time. So you can have your earth energy wants to have collaboration, community, and bringing together, and your wood energy says, yeah, but I want to be free and do anything and whenever I want to. Well, how does that work? Then, well, you have to construct things in a way to allow both energies to be really happy.
Yeah.
And then the final energy is metal energy, and that's related to autumn, to fall. And that stage, things disconnect, they end, they finish, but there's a fundamental of that disconnection. So their big question is what's missing or what's incomplete or what's imperfect. And that can be a really tough one, because the personal development world has sold us a the personal development world has sold, in the main, has sold us a view. A view is that you're meant to be positive. And it's often people with a lot of fire energies, it's about being positive and happy. So that's the narrative, and you'll see these books about joy and happiness, and we should be happy, and this should be positive thinking and manifestation and all this stuff. And then people with a lot of metal energy says, yeah, but I walk around seeing what's missing and what isn't right. Well, you need to be more positive. You need to move away from that, otherwise you'll never be successful in life.
Oh, yeah.
So we end up with this thing, and then water energy might. So every energy is related, has an emotion. So water energy is about fear. So they're exhibiting about fear and danger, and say we need to watch out for this danger. And the fire energy types with the positive thinking, yeah, but you need to be positive. As soon as you think about fear, you'll move into fear. You can't do that. They go, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I keep thinking about fear. Metal energy keeps thinking, oh, something wrong with me. I keep thinking what's missing and what isn't right. And they say, no, you shouldn't do that. You'll never be happy and successful in life if you do that. You need to be positive and grateful all the time, and then you'll be fine. So we end up with this sometimes a real sense, and I think the personal development world is always trying to make us like there's something inherently wrong with us in some way. We're either too positive or not positive. Or
I think it's called marketing. It's really sad, but I think marketing that is out there to sell a book or a course or a pair of jeans. It often goes to the lack space, doesn't it, of what's missing. And sometimes there's nothing missing. Sometimes it's just the way you are, or the way you see the world. I'm looking back sort of 3,000 years, going, well, who was the first person that went, oh look, all of those people, I can put them into sort of 5 different categories.
And that is such a good question. What they did was they just, because it kind of went beyond way back 3,000. What they did was just observe. They looked for patterns. And the Chinese were really obsessive about writing things down and recording things. So they would write things down and record them, and then the next person would live and they would write and record, and the next person would live and they would write and record. So it became years of observing patterns until they started to see, okay, we have these years going in certain patterns. We have cycles and seasons. We have certain ways for things showing up. And then there were a few great thinkers and writers around this, and I think they were having intuitive downloads. I think they got it, and they just said, okay, this is how it works, and they just saw the patterns underneath, because we're all energy anyway, aren't we?
So, and I think we're now coming full circle into that space, aren't we? Because a lot of people, I know there's a lovely man called Vernon Sankey who spoke at one of our events, and is in our Facebook group, and he puts beautiful posts on, but he's just talking about the energy, and he asks people, who are you? And you're like, okay. Ultimately your energy, that's the bottom line. And it is fascinating. We spoke before about spiral dynamics, didn't we? And how we're currently, so this is for those who haven't looked it up, give it a Google, or preferably YouTube, and you'll find some videos from Claire Graves and Don Beck, 2 very fascinating gentlemen who have looked into this back in the 60s before the invention of the internet. And I don't think they would be surprised to see what's emerging at the moment, that the culture and society that we are creating is what they pre-describe as the teal level of the spiral dynamic as it rises, and society as a whole are becoming self-organizing. So all of these energies are coming together and wanting collaboration and looking for what's missing, and the things that are out there. I mean, all of the big questions that you're talking about, freedom and fighting injustice, these things are springing up where people are organizing themselves without necessarily the leader at the front or a hierarchy to take it all the way down. And I think on the one hand, although these times in the 21st century are really quite scary, at the same time, when there are people out there like yourself that are bringing these ancient wisdoms, I'm very much aware, I feel, that there is nothing new under the sun as far as humanity is concerned. And what goes around comes around. And because of technology, we're now able to access communication much, much faster. And we're all coming to this realization that if we don't save each other, who will? And whilst the potential to destroy ourselves is huge, the potential like never before to come and make the best world possible for everyone is hanging in the balance. And that's what I think people are struggling with at the moment, is that the fear is, on my own I can do nothing. The reality is, together we can do everything. And the wisdom is already out there. And when people can access this kind of like, so who am I, what's my reason for being, and they tune into something like this, that is like, right, that's me, that's like, I couldn't have written it better myself, that's who I didn't know that's who I was, but I can see it now. You kind of, what I don't want people to do is to go, oh yes, I'm definitely water energy, and I'm, that's me, and I'm not moving, and I couldn't possibly do a fire person type thing. That's just not it. I don't want people to see labels as something that will they're allowed to be held back by it, if you see what I mean. Now I know that a comparison is very, very what's the word? A comparison to other profiling tools is very crass in this instance, I believe. But a lot of people love them. Answer 10 questions and you can get this, and you'll find out what your communication style is, or your personality profile is, and blah 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 blah. Here's your color, this is what it is. And then they give themselves permission to go, oh no, I'm that color, so I can't do that. That's not my thing. I'm not going to be that person, without realizing that we are one entity, we are whole. So my question to you, after that long preamble, is all of these energies that people have, do you see people stepping into each energy as and when the time is right, or do they see them as opportunities to step into a different space, or do they feel like, be strong and be powerful in the energy that you currently are?
Yes, to all of those. So inherently we're a mixture of all 5 energies. We have just some that are slightly more dominant, and that tends to be how we'll view the world, whereas with the lower energies will tend to have a bit of a kind of blind spot. So once you understand your view of the world, you can be aware that that could sometimes lead you to a singular view of the world, and that may or may not be helpful. So to be aware that you have a single approach, you might want to look at a different way, or understand how someone else is seeing something differently than you. Or you might be, and one of the things that's really important is none of the energies are better or worse. They exist in different forms. So I have, if I take the vitality test, my dominance is a kind of a wood, fire, and earth energy, and I have very little on the so I need to be aware that within what I'm trying to do, I will have a blind spot around sustainability. I'll have a particular blind spot around my own sustainability. So there, and then I also have, with my wood energy, I can get a little bit obsessive about things. So you put obsessiveness with then you can overwork. And if as I did, I got very confused with my central mission, that I want everybody in the world to have someone that's there for them. And I kind of thought it had to be me. And and then earth energy, you kind of sometimes don't ask for help, and you can sometimes move into sacrifice, and you get confused. So the main thing we try and do with the 5 Institute around these energies is just to kind of help people with that no one is ever wrong, or nothing ever wrong with anyone, but we can just become a bit confused about how things are, and like I said, I got confused that I want everyone in the world to have someone to be there for, and I got confused it had to be me, so I had to kind of.
You're not the Messiah.
That doesn't mean I'm broke. It just means I got confused with that. And I'm not someone that naturally asks for help, because I do like to be in control with my wood energy. And my earth energy doesn't like to ask for help. And I don't like to, don't want people to dislike me, so I don't ask for it from fire energy. So I never ask for any help. But that doesn't, and then I have a blind spot about sustainability. Well, I might want to look at that, because that is it might not serve me, but that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. So what I can do is I can step into water energy anytime I want to, should I choose. I can step into the physiology. I know the physical state of what it physically feels like to be in water energy. I know what things really boosts my water energy, like getting more sleep and doing certain things will boost my water energy. So I can step into it more and boost it to deal with things. Or I might want to step into my metal energy, and metal energy is about detachment. So if I'm really obsessed about something, every now and again, I might want to detach and just look at it and think, is this the right place to be stubborn, or is this the right place to actually step out? And it just allows me the flexibility to play and flow around with the energies. So in answer to your question, yeah, you can be any energy you want. You have ones that you tend to view the world through, but you can step into any energy you want if you want that. So we talk about energetic superpowers. You have energetic superpowers, and you can do heroic things with those, but it's difficult to be heroic if you're confused and if you think you're broken, or you think you're not good enough, or your self-esteem, or you have an internal contradiction. It's very difficult to be heroic because you think, oh, that doesn't feel right. But it's just like we just get a bit confused. And so when I understood the energies, it removed my confusion. And so I could just go, oh, okay, I'm not really, I see, I do this, I get this, I do this, I get this. And
what I love about it is that it complements so many other modalities that are out there.
Yeah.
That, it's not like one size fits all. Understand your energies, and everything will flow, and everything will be easy, and you'll be successful, and you'll be a millionaire, and you'll get your 6-figure salary, and whatever else is the little out there. What I love is the essence it's common sense as well, isn't it? When you know
absolutely.
What your genius. So in our world, collaboration global world, we talk about your genius, and it's my belief that everybody has been gifted something that they are on this planet to pursue and deliver for the benefit of others.
Yeah.
It might be you're a gifted musician, or it might be a sportsman, or skill in communication, or compassion, or whatever. There is something that you probably go, oh, everyone can do that. But actually they don't do it in quite the same way that you do. Yeah, and then when you're struggling to deliver your gift to others, there's something that's stopping you. There's something in the way. And when you have something like this, all the energies that you can look at and go, well, actually, look at my last week. Why am I feeling stuck? Why am I not sleeping? Why am I feeling sluggish? Why is my brain not working properly? Why? And I get the impression when you're really entrenched in the potential of this work, that you can just look at that and go, oh, I've been missing out on that bit. I need to step into, as you say, water energy or another modality, so that you can feed yourself. Yeah.
And it is, you're right, a lot of it is common sense, and it's also an inherent wisdom that we already have in us because we observe nature. So to use an example, I was working with someone a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying, oh, I'm really struggling, I'm so tired, I'm really tired, and my reserves and resources are really kind of dropping down. What do you think's going on? And I said, well, it's a water energy thing, because that's what reserves and resources, etc. There are different reasons we can be tired, but they were talking about reserves and resources. So I said, well, if you look at water in nature, the wave is coming in or it's going out. So when you're doing things, what state are you conscious of the state that you're in? Because when you're on, you should be on, and when you're off, you should be off. There's a point at which you have a point of turbulence as to whether you're going in and then you're wanting to come out, and that's, should I go to bed now, should I not go to bed? But you should be on or you should be off. And so much of the world is designed to actually have a muddy pool. I'm half on, I'm half off.
Especially if you're doing this all day long.
You're doing this all day, or the drivers, or you have a lot of these kind of boxed based identities. I'm an entrepreneur. What's the the identity of an entrepreneur, where they're constantly hustling and they're struggling and they're making things work and they're doing things, these archetypes we have, these boxes, we do the No More Boxes movement, these boxes, the entrepreneurs are struggling and they're this and they're hustling and they're all the time on it. We have archetypes with it. We see Gary Vee and he says, you're at it all the time, you've got to be doing all the stuff like that. And that might suit his energy, but it's not great for water energy, me with a blind spot about sustainability. So it's much better to say, actually, as me as an entrepreneur, I'm on or I'm off.
Yeah.
I'm not hustling all the time on it and at it, because that's not good for me as an individual. So once we get that nature is just saying a wave comes off or it comes on, and you just say, I'm choosing to be on, I'm choosing to be off. Simple. It's really, really simple. Or I'm choosing, water's other feature is to go round, through and over things. So I'm choosing to be a little bit different and flowing and adaptable, and that will be easier on my energy and my reserves, because I'm just going to go with the flow and stuff. And going with the flow and around things is different than going on and going off. So it's knowing your energetic state, and kind of, to me, the energies have always expressed that in very tangible ways. And so we just say, I'm on, I'm off. Am I going up and around and down? What am I doing? What am I trying to do here?
I love it, because throughout society, we have been taught to do things en masse. You know, when you're at school, there's 30 of you in a class, you're all the same age, you're all sitting in a desk, you're all facing the same way, you're all doing the same work. And this individuality of what do you need? You know, are we all visual learners? Are we kinesthetic learners? And you kind of, as time's gone on, we're realizing that we need this flow, and to go, well, that's a good method for you, but it doesn't work for me. Thank you. I'm going to have to do it a different way. And I'm not sure what that way is yet, but I'm going to go and find it, because if I do, if I get up at 5 a.m. to be a great full-on entrepreneur, I'll be dead by 10 o'clock. I can't do that. You know, I'm not going to get up and spend 3 hours meditating and then get on with my day. It doesn't fit for who I am. And I think, again, because of social media, we're now learning it's okay to be different. I think some people are still in that space of join my tribe, let's all do this together. And I think support and collaboration are essential, so long as we value and rejoice and celebrate everyone's differences. And this whole principle here is about, you know, we're kind of into 5 different areas, but at the same time, every area's got its different depths, and every area's got its different needs.
And every energy, and just flipping back to what you were saying about like the 5 a.m. club. Yeah. For me, the 5 a.m. club is for losers. I'm up at 2 a.m. and I don't go to bed until 1, because I'm a go-getter. I really make things happen. So I don't want to hang around with losers in the 5 a.m. club who likes to sleep in. Ridiculous behaviour. I'm up early. Anyway, the other thing I think is really interesting about the 5 energies is they have their places, but it's actually to do with the interaction about how you're playing with them, as to whether one energy feeds another, whether it controls another, whether it supports it. So with fire energy, they can have challenges around saying yes to do so many things because they're super excited
and getting burnt out,
and get burnt out, and then end up so which energy has an ability to control fire? Well, water controls fire. That has this angle, that kind of this line that comes across. So would it be useful to understand your water energy, why you're here, in order to work out to what you say yes to or what you say no to? And so you can do more work in your water energy area around where you want to leave your mark, and then you decide what you say yes to and no to. Just trying to control your yes and no without water is very, very difficult. And in the same way, earth energy has some challenges around it basically has no concept of time. It has all the time in the world. So if someone wants some help, you have all the time in the world to give them some help. And that can sometimes create a problem with water energy resources. So you might want to use a bit of wood energy, which is around boundaries and control. And you have to be kind of creative with it. So I have lots of earth energy, and I really struggle in my clinic to have boundaries. When someone was suffering and I wanted to be with them and understand what was going on, I would lose time. So what I did was I used some wood energy, a rule. And I basically said, so the appointment is an hour and I'm allowed to kind of go over by 10 minutes or so. If I stick to the hour, then there's a particular charity I work with that I would feed and educate a child for a week if I stuck to that hour. That's what I would do. If I stuck to that hour, I'd feed and educate a child. And I picked a particular charity that if I didn't give the money, that child would not get fed and educated.
Oh, you can't not.
Okay.
That is
now, if I didn't stick to the hour, I had to take that money and buy something for myself that was probably relatively meaningless and whatever. So I would get really kind of, as I was coming up to the hour, I knew there's a rule, the wood energy rule. I had to do that. And as I was coming up thinking, God, if I don't wrap up soon, this child is not going to be fed and educated for a week, and I'm going to have to buy some crap that I don't particularly want, because that's a rule I've set up. And wood energy can be really stubborn around rules, but that's a rule I've set up, and I'm not allowed to break that rule. But I never let patients know about this, and I would just always be doing it, and I'd be casually wrapping it up, and I'd be doing it like this. And then one of them saw, I was speaking at an event about how to manage, used to do some stuff on practice building, because I had a 2-year waiting list to work with me. So I used to know how to, and they heard me talk about how to control different energies at this particular thing. And I explained what I did at my practice, not realizing one of my patients was in the audience. I didn't know you did. I didn't know you did that. How long have you been doing that for? I said, about 10 years now. And then they told someone else, and then in the end, my patients were going, it's 5-2. I'm off. Let me just, no, I need to go. I don't want a child to starve.
No. I think I would have gone public with it a lot sooner. I think that always works for me. If I want to do something, I'm very good at cheating myself, but I'm not very good at cheating other people. So if I go public, then everybody knows that that's my commitment.
Oh, you see, I was tapping into my full-on word energy that can be very, 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 very stubborn.
I love it. I love also how these kind of concepts around spring, summer, autumn, winter actually flow into many other things. I was talking to a lady yesterday who is a stylist. So she looks at people's colours. And all the colours are spring, summer, autumn, winter. And if you look at people that are certain types of wherever they come in the calendar, you can almost ascertain whether they're going to be firewood earth as well. By coincidence, probably not. And it's just interesting how these kind of things filter through. That obviously it's been around a long, long time, and yet when I first heard about it, and the other thing that strikes me is the messages you're talking about energy, also in the ancient arts, is like Tai Chi or Qigong or any of those. It's also about pushing the energy into the earth and lifting up and getting light from heaven. And it just, for me, it just feels such a natural way of being, even though it's come from the other side of the world and it's from a different time in history. It feels like now is the time for it to kind of come back into its own. And there are many wonderful practitioners that are using the 5 elements, using within their practice, and the ancient, the kind of use of kind of qigong, and it's just out there everywhere. And we just kind of do a slightly kind of there's a mission behind what we're trying to do with it, which is to make it very human, accessible, easy to use, fun, etc., and challenging. And we want to challenge. So we were talking about
last time we were talking about the confusion, this idea of masculine and feminine energy, that came out of, so this idea that masculine is yang, feminine is yin, masculine and feminine energy, etc., etc. And as we were talking about, that singular idea that yin and yang is related to masculine or feminine was a construct of one writer who wrote one paper about it. And the emperor said, this is great because men are yang, heaven, women are earth, yin. Heaven controls earth. Heaven is divine, yang is divine, yin is earthly and human. And so it became subjugation as an idea. And there was never such a thing. There's no such thing as masculine and feminine energy. It's a social construct, but an incredibly useful social construct in order for, originally, for men to suppress women. And then it's been adopted by lots of different cultures, like the Greeks and the Romans said, well, men are logic, women are emotion. So therefore, men should be in the Senate and rule and make the laws because it needs to come from logic as opposed to emotion. And it goes right the way through. Every history has found it really, really useful to propagate the idea of feminine energy having a whole lot of associated things like listening and collaboration and culture and supporting and soft and yielding, and masculine energy is blah, 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 blah. And it is so divisive and so destructive as the polarity-based view. And one of the things I really love as yin and yang in its purest sense has no masculine or feminine. It's two states. And the five elements, the five energies, have no gender-based thing. And it allows us to be individuals rather than put in a box of.
I think we're all on this sliding scale, as you say. It's like there is no. It's like right and wrong. Who decides? This kind of. It's this scale of grey that we have, and some people have a feminine energy, and some people have a masculine energy, and it's irrelevant to what their sex is. Totally irrelevant.
But that is what you said is the very issue and the very, very challenge within this. Because what you've just said, some people have a masculine energy and some people have feminine energy, regardless of their gender. But you've still said that feminine energy has a set of associated traits to it.
Yes, it doesn't. I get that. Yeah? It's habit, isn't it? Because that's where we come from.
Total habit.
It's like little girls wear pink, and it's like, well, that only started in the Victorian times. Before that, little girls used to wear blue. So, it's just this habit. And you're right. And it's like 20 years ago, we called soft skills would be considered to be the feminine style of skills. And in fact, now we know, as time goes on, that the skills that were considered soft are actually the vital ones that keep the world turning.
But we're much better off using terms like kind of soft skills or hard skills or whatever, rather than giving them to a gender. And people say, oh, well, we're not talking about gender, masculine, feminine. Well, then don't use the word masculine, feminine, because that has gendered associations. Because otherwise what you end up with is kind of gendered professions. And people, or someone that has a more yang energy and they like to dress in a certain way because they like to have a certain aspect around control and things being done in a certain way, etc. And they said, oh, you're trying to dress like a man. No, I just like to have things sharp and tight and efficient, and I like it that way because it makes me feel good, as opposed to someone dressing in a different style. Oh, you're definitely more feminine. Look at the way you're this flowing style. Well, no, it isn't. It's just more of an earth energy desire to feel comfortable in one's own skin.
Well, and that brings us perfectly to one of the other things that you're passionate about, is people being put into boxes. Attitudes in boxes. And you've got something that helps people, this philosophy about coming outside? I'll leave you to explain it. Go on.
Yeah. So I was very privileged to speak at the United Nations, a big event there, and one of the speakers suddenly, one of the organisers had heard me chatting to someone in one of the breakout rooms, and there was just about to be a panel of men talking about men and women and stuff like that. And they said, "Oh, you wouldn't mind just going on the panel, would you?" And I said, "No, it's absolutely fine." Everyone else had been given the questions 2 months before, so I was going on there blind. And it started out this conversation about gender and masculine and feminine energy. I just thought, oh, God, this is just crazy. So I just did a little kind of 2-minute on, as soon as you put men in one box and women in another box, then you end up with inherent division. Yeah. And within that division, there gets to be an argument between. And so let's just stop putting men in one box and women in another box and just explore as to who we really are. Let's just stop putting each other in boxes. And Rena Magnusdotter, who I'd gone to America with, she was in the audience. And the taxi back to flying out of New York, there was a big storm and we had to fly out. And I got a standing ovation for that, men and women in boxes. The United Nations, they kind of,
wow,
that was very
many people can say that.
Yeah, so it was good. But she, in the taxi on the way back, she said, "Hey, how do you fancy starting something called the No More Boxes movement? And we'll just try and challenge these stereotypes, not just about gender, but also kind of, you're in this box. Well, you know what Americans are like. You know what Italians are like. Oh, you know what these people are like. You know what these... This idea that because someone has a certain label, then they must have other characteristics. Mm-hmm. So a really fun one that we do, we say, okay, tell me the first 3 to 5 things that come to your mind when you think about a vegetarian. And they'll go, oh, planetary, caring about things. And they list these stereotypical box-based things around a vegetarian. Yeah. You say, oh, okay, that's fantastic. Now, Hitler was a vegetarian. So how does that work out? He said, he wasn't a vegetarian. Well, why not? It was just about his choice not to eat meat. Yeah, but he wasn't a vegetarian. Oh, what you mean is he doesn't have the vegetarian stuff that's in the box that they like. I mean, the old, slightly more stereotypical. So it's trying to get away with this idea. And as I mentioned it before, like the entrepreneurs, they have to be hustling and this and that, or artists are poor and struggling, or women are soft and caring, or teachers like to listen, or nurses like to hold hands, and they might well be, well, they might not be. And we get really, really shocked when someone isn't in the box that we think they should be. Well, I was speaking to this nurse and she just wasn't like this. Or when we saw Jacob Rees-Mogg doing that dead cat strategy when he was lying across the benches in the Houses of Parliament, and he was doing it to distract everyone from the real conversation. But we were shocked because he was a man of education and stature and thing. He was in this box and he was just lying like this.
Oh dear.
Whereas if you'd seen a teenager in a thing lying like, you wouldn't have said anything. But Jacob Rees-Mogg was out of his box. And therefore we were shocked and disturbed by it, which is why he did it, because he wanted to get us. So we can really get trapped in our boxes and our identities of I'm flawed, or I'm not good enough, or I'm like this and of this education and we're not good at doing things, or I do this and I am good at doing things, or I'm this culture, therefore I should be interested in this, or and it's really trying to challenge the traps that the boxes trap us in, and at the same time really trying to get away from this black and white thinking, this division of you're a Republican Trump supporter, so that must mean that X, Y, and Z, and you're this, that must mean this, and it just is.
It's, and I think the media have got a lot to answer for. You know, they give every generation a nickname, don't they? It's, you know, baby boomers, they're all like that. Generation millennials rather, Generation X. Millennials are all lazy. The Generation X, all sort of tech obsessed. Whatever it is, and we all fall for it because it's convenient and it feels safe to know that that's what those people like. The biggest one for my bugbear is when people have got teenagers who are being a pain, and they're like, "Oh, teenagers, what can you do?" Because they happen to have a date around their birthday, means they're 13 or 14, does not equate to them being a pain in the bum. You've got to do some work here. They're your children. You've got to sit down and talk to them and listen to them. They don't have to be teenagers in that, Harry Enfield sketch. And that's what they expect their teenagers to be nowadays. And it's like, why put them in a box? I mean,
I remember years ago working with someone who was very, very, very worried about their teenager. They said, well, when I was that age, I was rebelling and I was doing this and I'm trying out things and just being, out there. And they're just very happy just doing what we do as a family. They're not a normal teenager, are they?
You don't have to rebel. It's not the law. It doesn't, make sure you're 13 that you have to go out there and rebel. I don't think I did, and I don't think my kids did. We talked. And we respected each other, and we listened to each other, and we enjoyed being part of the same family.
Yeah, and that's a style of existence, isn't it? But it's neither not right nor wrong. It's just a style of existence. I love that.
Oh my goodness! So, how do you see the Five Institute expanding and making an impact on a global scale? Is that your, world domination? Is that your plan for the future, or where do you go with it?
No, the reality is what happens is with our work at the Five Institute is people love it and they share it. That's not that's not the same as me having a plan or necessarily a strategy to make it so global that it's, I do have a part of me that would really like this to be mainstream. And I do have that, but I mean, actually, it is that kind of dynamic tension that I've got going on with my energies that I kind of do. I do want it to be out there because I know it. I personally think it's one of the best tools around for internal and external cultures. How do we live with yourselves? How do we live together as family? It's a way to understand incredible complexity in terms of what's going on in our spiritual development, what's going on in geopolitics at the moment. It's an incredible way to understand. However, I'm not I think probably the best way to describe it, I'm kind of in a place of active surrender. So I'm doing everything I possibly can to move it to people's consciousness. By doing things I love, which is like having conversations like this. But I'm not into getting it out there by creating scarcity or lack or making. I mean, a great way to sell someone something is to make them feel really bad, and then they'll feel really bad if they don't have it, or it's going to run out, or it's not going to thing. And that just doesn't appeal to me. I want to actually break the narrative that a lot of the personal development world is trying to get you to do things because if you do this, you will no longer be broken. And if you're no longer broken, you'll be able to do all the things you dream of doing and have all the things you have. You've just got to deal with the bit of you that's broken. Whereas we talk about just kind of loving living as you, because you're absolutely fine. So I'm not in a great push to create the standard way that you get things out there in the world. I'm not interested in doing that. I'm a bit more interested in being a little bit different in the way that we get things out there. And we have thousands and thousands and thousands of people take the vitality test. And we do not market, we don't advertise, we don't go at things. We just, people say, I've taken this, is really useful. Or we want to take this, or we look in communities, or do different things. And then we've got amazing people like Dr. Andrea Pennington. She talked about it on a TED talk. The vitality test, I think, is is about kind of 9 or 10 different books. Not ones I've written, but other people just write books and they put it in there. People use it, and we've just run something called the 5-day mindset makeover, and I was absolutely thrilled that one of the people who lives in Bali said, oh, I have just had this most amazing week with you. I've absolutely adored it. It's changed how I feel. And what I'm doing is, in Bali, I'm sharing this with kids, because it's such a different way to look at how to approach confusion about ourselves. And that was really cool. That is kind of, and we talked about this before. I'm not wealthy. I'm very wealthy because I live in the West, and I'm this and that. I'm blessedly wealthy. But I'm not wealthy. However, I kind of just end up with what I need. And at times when I want or need a lot, suddenly a lot comes along. So when we needed to build all the infrastructure for the vitality test, and we've got some big tech that did it, suddenly out of nowhere I get a chunk of money just appeared, and I thought, great, build the test. So we built the big test center. We want to build a new one that's going to work much better with teenagers and young people, a bit more tech, a bit works on your phone. We're a bit clunky, so I'm thinking that would be nice to have a bit more. So let's see how that goes. Recognizing that actually I'm already very wealthy.
Yes, you're very similar to me, not only in our energies, but also in our philosophies. I think we both have a responsibility to be accessible for as many people as possible. I don't think we should be twisting anybody's arm to get involved with their organisations, because they have to come of their own free volition and understand what we're trying to build and get out there. And I think at some point it will probably ping and it will grow when the time is right, when people are ready to listen and when people are ready to hear. And at such time, it's just our duty to be visible, to be active, to be sharing. And it will get into the right hands for the right people. And I think you're right. I think if this stuff could be taught in schools, it would save bullying. It would save on all of the male, was it between 18 and 35, the biggest cause of death amongst males?
Suicide.
I mean, it just doesn't bear thinking about. But if they had something like this to kind of understand themselves, it goes some way towards putting people back in control of who they are and what they're about and what they want to achieve. So I do wish you every success with it, and hopefully at some point down the line we'll have a collaboration where we can both share, apart from this podcast, a bigger collaboration where we can both share what we're doing and support each other to spread the word. And I think you're exactly right. It isn't about us making shed loads of money, but if we can access those finances, we can make a massive difference for an awful lot of people. That's what it's about.
So if someone said to me, would you like to have lots of money? I go, yes, I really would.
Absolutely.
Because I will do something, I will do X and Y instead with it, and I might sleep slightly better at night, or all the stuff that goes. But recognizing actually one isn't poor to start with, and then one is I'm in a very privileged I don't feel it.
Wealth is a state of mind. It is a state of mind. It doesn't matter how many bits of plastic you have lying around or what car you drive. I mean, my philosophy is if you've got a wheel on each corner and it goes, that's a good car. So, it's a state of mind. When I was a kid, we had no money. I think I said to you before, we had an outside toilet, we had no heating, we had no hot water, my mum had to boil it up, we had no bathroom, coal fire, poor me, bless, I didn't know any different, I was a kid. But the mindset in the family was like, yeah, we'll find a way. You want that? Yeah, we'll see what we can do. Yeah, we'll give it a go, you know. And somehow, you know, if I wanted a doll for Christmas, there was this doll for Christmas. And, you know, it just managed to get there. And it was this mindset of like, well, we'll find a way. It's okay. We need this. We might not need it, but if we really need it, we'll find a way.
Yeah.
My mum used to say, like you just said, you know, they'd have a windfall, they'd earn something off of the premium bonds, and then the washing machine would break down. Luckily,
I must invite you to play. Runa and I play a game twice a year called the Game of Boxes.
Yes.
Where people join and we give them $10 of imaginary money to spend on the first day. $200 the second day, $400 the third. Basically, you double it. So we're playing it at the moment, and we're on day 18. So we've just given them $13 million to spend in $13.5 million to spend in one day.
Like that.
And you have to kind of work out what you're going to do with it. It's really interesting because it throws up all your money box stuff, all the stuff about your money box, your identity, what am I like as a person? Oh God, if I spend it on me, well, people think I'm not generous. Yeah. It's a really fascinating game for that very exploration of recognizing who you are and how you've been socially conditioned in terms of your perception around the narrative that you have around yourself, and to play with kind of exploring what would it be like if I did this. So
I love that expression. What if? I often play that. What if we could do that? What if we had no money at all? What if we had all the money in the world? What if? What could we do? Listen, on that note, Nick, I've had a fascinating conversation, but I'm going to draw it to a line time. We might revisit. We might come back for part 2. I don't know. That would be lovely. If anybody wants to get hold of you, what's the easiest way for them to contact you?
Just to go to the 5institute.com or Nick at 5institute, FIVE institute.com. And I'm there. I'm not massive on social media. I'm very pathetic, I think is the word to describe.
Not your thing. That's fine. Let other people do that. There's lots of other people out there making a noise. And of course, if you want to meet Nick, he might be at one of our meetings, which is on the the last Tuesday of the month. It's changed. The last Tuesday of the month, 3 till 5, British Summer Time or GMT. And we have our Collaboration Global sessions where we have guests that come as well. Hopefully Nick will be with us this month, which is May 2022. But just come along and meet some amazing people as well. It'll be lovely to have you there. You can find us at collaborationglobal.org, or you can contact me with Jill, GILL, at collaborationglobal.org as well. And I'll let you know where you can book in. You can go to the website and book in, or you can find us on Eventbrite and all of the usual social media places, because I like to get out there as well. Thank you again, Nick. It's been a fascinating conversation, and it's just good to know that there's this wonderful tool that potentially is going to be across the world supporting people. And I love the fact that it was 3,000 years old, but it's still something that is relevant and valuable in today's world as well. So thank you so much. It's been a real joy.
Thank you, Jim.